in terms of your first involvement, you attended that open source event,
Barcamp, yeah.
Barcamp, and you took part in organizing a similar one at the location where you were based, which still is Portland.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that became a series of events. And then that kind of blossomed into, well, if we can use this format for this type of event, why don't we pick other subjects that we can do unconferencey type things with? And so that just kind of different unconference events kept popping up in town. And then at the same time, we were building, a WordCamp Portland. So the WordPress community gatherings that happen all over the world and are, managed by the community. So some of those started to pop up, and I was involved in those, both from a planning and speaking standpoint. And then I eventually speaking at OSCON and attending OSCON became kind of part of that whole event thing as well.
Do you remember what were the values and what was the experience that you saw when you started to attend open source events at the beginning that just kind of clicked with you and inspired you to not just go and attend more events, which most of us do, but also put a lot of effort into building these for the community or communities in your area?
Yeah, it was the level of personal connection. I'm fairly introverted. I don't relish the idea of going to events, but like being at events, there's a different level of humanity and connectivity that's availed by that format. And I think for me, it was, social media wasn't a thing, but bloggers knew about other people's blogs, and we would often like block quote one another's blogs and do trackback links or a comment or whatever. And so there was a similar to today where there's that weird parasocial relationship where you're like, I know that person because I follow them on Blue Sky and I see what they say, so I must know who they are. It was really a way of, putting actual humans together with their online persona and often being in a room that it looked like a bunch of avatars walking around, because I'm like, oh, I know you and I know you, but I've never met you before, but I know how you speak and I know how you think, and the events, the reason I think I found them most compelling is no matter how effusive or transparent people are online when they're creating content, some people are naturally predisposed to that kind of transparency. You still weren't getting the whole story unless you met those people in person. And there were always interesting little nuggets that they would say offhandedly where it's like, that's way more interesting than anything I've ever seen you post online. So that in person part of it was the thing that made me understand how compelling events could be in that regard. In my career, I had managing events was part of my job. And so I had a very different perspective on what the value of an event was. And it was generally, top of the funnel deal and customer gathering kind of stuff. And so this was the first time where I was attending events more as an attendee and participant, less so as a sponsor speaker kind of thing. And so that gave me a totally different perspective on events themselves.